dialing in. Hi everyone. Thank you for coming to our webinar about the Richmond Endeavor program. My name is Akila. I'm the Assistant Director in the Office of Living and Learning and Roadmap Program. So we're the office that kind of handles Endeavor, which is our first year living and learning program, as well as a bunch of other things for sophomores, as well as orientation and all of that good stuff.
And then my name is Meghana. I am a rising sophomore at the University of Richmond, and I participated in Endeavor last year as a freshman.
Yay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have a little presentation for you all. So I will go ahead and give you a brief overview of the program, and then Meghana will give you her experience as a student, and then we'll have some time at the end for any questions that you might have. Before we get started, at the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A feature. We just ask that you all submit any questions that you might have with that feature instead of in the chat. That way it'll be easy for us to kind of sort through at the end. And then if you need to message any one of us, please feel free to use the chat if you need to, but any questions, try to use that Q&A feature. So I'll go through the Endeavor program first. So like I said, the Richmond Endeavor program is a living and learning program for first year students. This is kind of what it's all comprised of. So it has 2 linked courses. So if you're admitted into the program, you take a class in the fall semester and then a class in the spring semester. We'll go over the classes a little bit more in detail in the upcoming slides, but generally speaking, the courses satisfy either general education requirements that students have or courses that you need for specific majors. Part of the Endeavor program is also getting really good, having a good relationship with a faculty member, because the faculty that teaches your Endeavor course actually also serves as your academic advisor. So you get a really early on connection with a faculty member. You also have a peer advisor, so we call them Endeavor navigators, and they're basically peer mentors. So they contact you during the summer when you're trying to figure out your classes. They're actually pivotal in helping you pick your courses for your first semester and also just get acclimated even before you get to campus. They also serve as your orientation advisor for Roadmap, which is a pre-orientation program. So you move in 3 days before the rest of the student body moves back to campus, and you go through, that's when you also meet your faculty member and you meet the rest of the people in your Endeavor class. So you have an opportunity to kind of bond with your cohort, and then you also have the opportunity to go on and off campus and do a bunch of things in the Richmond community as well. And so the navigators stay with you from the summer throughout your time in Endeavor. And so they really help build community. They help you, like I said, schedule your classes. And then they're also just a good resource to have, because it's always nice to talk to a student who kind of knows what's going on campus. And then finally, you all live together in Laura Robbins, which is a really nice residence hall. It got renovated like pretty recently, and it is a first year residence hall. So the first couple of floors there are specific floors that are Endeavor, but you'll also be living with other first years as well. So to kind of go into a little bit of detail on the communities. So if you want to know, like, these are kind of the titles for all of the classes that we're offering in this like upcoming fall and spring. If you want details for each one, I would highly recommend going to our website, but there are a couple things that I want to point out. So like I said, Endeavor has linked courses, right? And so you can see, for example, underneath the Crusades and Holy Wars is one of the classes that's being offered. It says FYS 100 and then IDST 190. So in the fall, you'll be taking a class that counts as a first year seminar. That's what FYS stands for. And that actually fulfills one of the graduation requirements that students have. So all first years have to take 2 first year seminars. And so by being a part of this Crusades and Holy Wars class, you would be getting that requirement out of the way. And then IDST 190 is a half unit that you take in the spring, and it's more of like a capstone project class. And so that's when the students in the class really come together to kind of take everything that they've learned together and prepare like a project of some kind. So that's one opportunity, like through Endeavor. The next one down, you'll see Leadership for an Equitable and Socially Just Society. You'll see that the classes are actually LDST 101 and LDST 210. So those are actually both classes that are required for leadership studies major. So if you're interested in leadership studies, if you're interested in anything of that sort, this might be a good program to look at, or a good class to look at, because you would be with your Endeavor cohort, but you'd be fulfilling a requirement for your major. And then the last one that I want to point out is actually the third one. I didn't realize they were all in line. So the one that says migration and borders, this in the fall, you'll be taking Anthropology 101, and then in the spring is that same IDST 190, which is like that capstone project class that I said. But Anthropology 101 actually fulfills like a general education requirement. So if you go on our website, it'll show you exactly which one it fulfills. And it also fulfills, if you're interested in anthropology, it's a requirement for the major. So some of these classes can double count for things that you need for graduation anyway. But obviously you'd be getting it in a specific format with the people in your cohort. So in addition to these classes that we're offering, there's actually another two other specific programs. And so one is called Societal Impact Through Business. So we'll be offering 2 sections of this Endeavor program. So that's each section has about 16 students, and that goes for these 2. So each of these classes would have around 16 students. It's just that we'll be having 2 sections of 16 for Societal Impact Through Business. And this is for people who are super interested in business and definitely want to be a part of the business school at Richmond. This is kind of an overview of what you'd be taking. So you would take BUAD 100, which is Applied Business Topics. And so this is kind of an introductory class where you connect with staff and faculty on campus, as well as you go out into the Richmond community to kind of really see how businesses run. So you get connected with the community like situation, and you'll be able to see a lot of the topics that you study in class. And then the rest of these are actually, a lot of them are prerequisites to be able to get into the business school. So you'll be connected with a lot of faculty in the business school. You'll be connected with a lot of opportunities both in and outside of the classroom. So if business is something you're interested in, this is something you definitely want to take a look at. And then finally, there's science, math, and research training, so SMART. We're also offering 2 sections of this. And so this is really for students who are interested in science and math generally, even if you don't know what you eventually want your major to be. If you're interested in those topics, this is a great thing to consider. It takes an interdisciplinary approach to science and research, and it gives you a lot of really tangible research experience. And again, this is kind of an overview of the classes that you'd be taking. A question that we always get is about AP classes and whether or not, if you took Calc 1, or if you took AP Calculus, like if that would count. It goes over it on our website, but really this kind of format is pretty unique to this program. And so we would recommend that you take the calculus class with this cohort. But if you have further questions on that, there's more information on our website and stuff too. So I've talked a lot. This is a quote from one of the students who did participate in Endeavor. So Endeavor gave me some of my closest friends on campus. My whole class had a mutual respect for one another, and they made bonds with both my classmates and my professor. And then here's another quote saying that the Endeavor program gave more than a really exciting and interactive classroom experience. It gave the student peers who they could engage with. So Meghana, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience both in and out of the classroom as a student?
Yeah, so I guess to start off with my in-classroom experience with Endeavor, the Endeavor class I was a part of was called Pandemic and the Health of Nations. So very current, very relevant. We used COVID as our case study. And we really just got to look very closely at how countries were handling COVID for the first semester. And then the second semester was our FYS. And it allowed you to, since you have the same professor both semesters, it allows you to build this super close connection with your professor, which then leads to experiences outside the classroom. So that could be whether your professor is giving you internship recommendations, which I have Dr. Mays, and he actually did give me an internship recommendation for this summer. So that's super exciting. And then you just are able to connect with all of these different people and begin networking with a lot of different people. Dr. Mays, as I mentioned, was our professor for our cohort. And one thing he really liked to do was get together students that he had in the past in his cohorts. And we would kind of get to talk to these students and upperclassmen, especially being freshmen. It's super helpful to just have those connections to be able to reach out, whether it's questions about a professor or a class, you always have other people just through your Endeavor class. And then we also got to do like fun dinners. There's a ropes course at Richmond that we did a few times, and just a lot of really unique opportunities to get to know your cohort really well. And I mean, I guess just echoing these quotes, I found my best friends in my Endeavor cohort. And that's purely because we were in the same class and we got to do a lot of stuff together. And with COVID, that really did help.
Thank you for sharing. So the final part of this is probably a lot what you all have a lot of questions on, which is how to apply. So the application is already live on our website. So you can go ahead and submit it. And the deadline is June 1st. So you'll hear from us on June 11th of whether or not you've been admitted. And then you'll have or you'll accept or decline the offer by June 13th. A question that did come up for a couple of people was about roommates. And so the roommate portal, you'll have access to the roommate portal until June 16th, I believe. And so you'll know whether or not you're in Endeavor before then. And regardless of whether, like, if you've already completed your housing application, I know that some students have asked, like, oh, there's a thing that says Endeavor, like, do I click it? It's okay if you did, it's okay if you didn't, it doesn't really matter, because once we get the final like roster of the students that are in the program, we'll be sending those names to housing anyway, so they'll know who you are and you'll be able to like do you'll be able to do roommate stuff that way. And so yeah, you can apply through your Spider portal. And then finally, the last bit of information is that once you've accepted your offer, you'll be able to match and choose a roommate within StarRes, which is like the housing portal that Richmond uses, with another Endeavor student. And if you want to go like for a random roommate, they'll just match with another Endeavor student based on your housing profile. And that's one thing to highlight too, is that so if I was in the Crusades and Holy Wars, if I was interested in that class and Megana was interested in the Migrations and Borders class, we could both be in those different classes and still be roommates. So it's a cohort style housing. So you don't necessarily have to room with someone who's in the same class as you. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. So that's all I have. I'll leave this up because that's my email and that's our website. And so feel free to kind of like use that if you need to, but otherwise we can go through these questions. And Megana, I don't know if you can see the questions as well. So feel free if there's one that you want to answer. You can do that. I'm starting from the bottom up. Does your roommate that you may have already found have to be in Endeavor? So yes, that is one thing. They don't necessarily have to be in your class, but they do have to be in the program overall. Let's see. Just to clarify, the IDST course counts as a first year seminar for that semester, or do we need to take an FYS on top of the program? So yes, the IDST course does not count as a first year seminar because it's only a half unit. So for some of the classes, let me actually go back to that. Oh, good. Hold on, hold please. For some of the classes that were listed, like you'll see under Crusades and Holy Wars, like FYS for that first semester, you will have, that would have taken care of that. But in the spring semester, you will take another FYS. There's a whole list of them. You'll see them like when you get here. And so you would take that in addition to the IDST, if that makes sense. Let's see. Is the Endeavor program only for your first year? Yes, it's just for your first year, but our office does have this thing called Sophomore Scholars in Residence, which I won't get too much into detail, but it is a living and learning program for second year students. And so if you still wanted that experience, you could take a look at that as well. Let's see. Megana, do you want to answer this question? How does the living experience for Endeavor compare to the typical freshman living experience?
Yeah, so for Endeavor, we're in Laura Robbins. And so, like Akila mentioned, it's not only Endeavor students in that dorm, you're still in a dorm with non-Endeavor students. So it really doesn't vary all that much. Endeavor just offers you a community of people that you like go into school knowing, and you usually like just feel very comfortable around those people because it's a built-in support system for you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll echo that too. And just from what I've heard from students, it's just that what Meghana just said, like it's a built-in support system. You know that these students are interested in the same stuff that you are, and because you're living together, it kind of is like you're inevitably going to see each other all the time. So that's kind of like the difference between not being an Endeavor and just coming in as a without any living and learning program. If you want to be in SMART, do you also have to be in Endeavor? So yeah, Endeavor, like SMART is kind of just became a part of like the Endeavor program. So it's essentially the same. If you go on the SMART website, like it is, a lot of it is like what SMART has always been, which is this is a program that's been at the university since before. It's just this year they've become like, they're going to do the residential portion. So you'll be living together as well. So I hope that answered your question. Let's see.
There's
Can you?
a question. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay. There's a question about how Endeavor is different from peer advisors and mentors and then Bonner scholars. I was actually also in peer advisors and mentors last year, and you can do the programs concurrently. That's not a problem. It just gives you like more support basically. Bonner scholars though does have like separate requirements you have to meet in terms of like amount of volunteer hours and stuff like that you have to fulfill, but you can participate in more like multiple programs at the same time.
Thank you. And I think, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a Bonner Scholars, if like a interest session coming up, right? Like at 8?
At 8 o'clock tonight. Yep.
Okay, yes. So there is that. And so if you're interested in that, definitely you can take a look at that, which is coming up. Sorry.
But we also have lots of Bonner scholars who do Endeavor. That's not a problem.
Yes. Sorry, I just opened the chat, so I got distracted just to make sure there weren't any questions in here. There was a question about telling us again how it aligns with the leadership program. So basically this class right here, Leadership for an Equitable and Socially Just Society, these two classes that you would be taking as part of the Endeavor program, like the Leadership Studies 101 and then 210, those classes are required for the leadership major. So like part of completing the major would be to take those classes anyway. So it's just if you know you're kind of interested in eventually declaring a major, because for Richmond, you can't declare a major coming in. You declare it at the end of your sophomore year. But if you are interested in leadership, you would be kind of getting those prerequisites out of the way. So I hope that answers your question. Let me see. Ooh. Are there any costs related to the program? And if so, are there ways to minimize them? Good question. There are no costs that are associated with the program. So all of the experiential things that you're gonna have like as part of this program is covered by our office. So there's no like additional fees or anything to apply. If you apply to more than one Endeavor community, will you be accepted into only one, or you choose which community to be a part of when you get accepted into all of them? I believe you are only, Andy, can you confirm? Sorry, I feel like I'm having like a brain freeze. You only are accepted, you can rank them, and then I think you get accepted into whichever ones, or you get only accepted into one.
You could get accepted into multiple ones, and then students would have to decide which one they want to do.
Thank you. Yeah, I was
because the faculty reviewed them all.
Yeah, so the faculty will review your application, and so if you apply to 3 classes and all 3 faculty want you, we'll let you know like which programs you've been accepted to, and then you'll be able to give us an accept or decline by that June 13th deadline, and you'll pick which one you want to be in.
There's a more housing related question on where the location of Laura Robbins is. It's actually not next to the other freshman dorms. It's right next to the dining hall though, and then like the upperclassmen dorms and the apartments. So the freshman dorms are on the other side of the lake.
There's a question, would students still be in the same dorm as non-Endeavor students? Yes, so there's like a couple of floors that are Endeavor, and then the rest of it would be first year students who are not in Endeavor. Is there any advantage to applying sooner rather than later? Just that it will be off your to-do list, but we aren't going to be looking at the applications until after the deadline. So as long as you submit by the deadline, you should be good. Let's see. This is done. What do Endeavor students do with the roadmap program before move-in day? So roadmap is a 3-day pre-orientation program that our office runs. And so it's essentially like you move in 3 days before the rest of the student body comes in. And if you're accepted to the Endeavor program, you just would be meeting the people in your class like during roadmap. So part of roadmap is you take like a short course, which is like a pretend class. But if you're in the Endeavor program, you would essentially meet the people that you will be with for the whole year. There's more information about roadmap on our website. And it's essentially like if you're interested in just kind of like getting a feel for what a college classroom is like, but you maybe Endeavor feels like too much for you, or you're like, I'm not really sure if I want to commit for a year, but the like smaller group aspect still appeals to you, roadmap might be a good program for you because it's 3 days. You get to take classes like a mock class, like there's no homework or anything, on a variety of different topics. And you also get connected to a faculty member who also serves as your academic advisor. The difference with Endeavor is that it extends throughout the year. It has the peer mentor association with it and stuff like that. So they are a little bit different. If you do Endeavor, you have to do roadmap, but you can not do Endeavor and still do roadmap, if that makes sense. Let's see. There are a couple of questions about like the acceptance rate for the Endeavor program. So Endeavor is still pretty new, and thus far, mostly the students that have applied have gotten either their first or second choices. I think this past year we might have to have declined like just a handful of students, but because it's so new and because there's quite a few number of like sections to fill, more often than not, students do get into the classes that they want. I can't think off the top of my head like a rate, like a percentage, but that's the best answer that I have. Andy, I don't know if there's anything you want to add, but yeah. That would be that. Can you have a roommate that isn't in Endeavor, but you are? So unfortunately, no, you would have to have a roommate that is also part of the Endeavor program. But like we said before, they can be in a different class than you, but they do have to be part of the overall program. So this was done. Let's see.
There was a question just asking what community I'm in. I'm in the Pandemic and Health of Nations community, and I guess what interested me in that community was I am interested in being pre-med and going to med school, and with COVID going on, it just seemed like a very interesting program to be in since we completely focus on COVID as our case study for the year.
There's a question that says, are these classes also offered to students not in Endeavor? So they are not. So these are Endeavor specific like classes. So you'll be with the people just in your cohort. How do you find a roommate that is also in the Endeavor program? So once you get, once you get your offer and you accept or decline, you'll log into StarRes, which is the online portal for housing. And then you will essentially be able to only see people who are also in Endeavor. And then that's when you can like kind of look at each other's little like housing profiles, and you'll be able to see the students that you can then be matched with to be roommates. If you apply for Endeavor, do you also have to apply for Roadmap? Good question. You do not. So because Roadmap, the experience of Roadmap is part of the Endeavor program, you just need to apply for Endeavor and then you'll automatically be like, enrolled in Roadmap and all of that stuff. So you don't need to submit 2 applications. If you are like, again, like if Endeavor is a lot, but you still want the Roadmap experience, you would have to apply separately for that. But if you're interested in Endeavor, you apply, you get in, that's all you need to do. Meghana, do you want to answer this question? Since it's separate from other freshman dorms, do Endeavor students feel isolated at all? And I know this is kind of an interesting question because you had COVID this year, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that being in Endeavor really isolates you from the rest of the student body. It's, I guess just to reiterate, it's more of like a support system that's in place for you and a group of people that you feel comfortable with and always have, but it in no way like cuts you off from the rest of campus or the rest of the students who are not in Endeavor.
Thank you. There's a question, do the communities cycle each year? So yes, they do. Because a faculty member becomes your academic advisor, they just cycle in and out each year, or else they would just have a lot of students to advise. So they do have like an on year and an off year. That's why Megana's program, the Pandemic and the Health of Nations, isn't one that's offered this upcoming year because he did it this year, if that makes sense. Let's see. What criteria do you look for in applicants beyond the application? And I think there was another question about, do you need to craft my answers or can I answer them naturally? So really the best advice that I can give you as far as the application goes, and this is kind of like a corny answer, but it's true. And that's just to be your authentic self and to really like highlight why you're interested in certain classes. So nothing, there's no like magic answer. We're not looking for, you know, the right words to use or anything like that. But really, we just want to know like a little bit about who you are and why you're interested both in the specific class, but also like why you're interested in having like a community right into college. So we just want to get to know you a little bit about like who you are and what you're interested in and stuff like that. And like we said, the faculty are also going to be reviewing this. And so that's why in your answers, if you can be like a little bit specific for the classes, you don't have to know, you know, you don't have to have your 4-year plan, like you don't have to know what you want to do for the rest of your life. But if you're interested, you know, in the business class, or if you're interested in Crusades and Holy Wars, like to speak a little bit on why you're interested in that will be helpful because the faculty can kind of get a feel for your interest and who you are from those answers. But yeah, don't like, there's no pressure to like be a certain way or to like write the right words or anything like that. Just be as authentically yourself as you can. That's my best answer. Let's see.
There's a question about if you're required to participate in living learning communities as an upperclassman if you've participated in Endeavor. And the answer to that is no. I do know, like in my class, for example, a lot of the students are going to be in SSIR just because they really liked their experience in Endeavor. So you might see that, but there's no like requirement for you to have to do that.
Yep, exactly. No requirement at all. If you have a roommate already that you hooked up with, she also wants to be in Endeavor, are you assured to be roommates? So if she wants to be, if both of you apply to Endeavor and both of you are admitted into the program, then on StarRes, you can kind of like pick each other to be roommates. And then that's it. Like you'll be guaranteed like to be roommates together. The only requirement really is that both of you are participating in the program. Let's see. I'm like not clicking done on all these. Hold on. If we get our first option, can we change it? So if there's like an extenuating circumstance, like where you're like, if you have a reason, like I would say just email us, like if that happens. But if you put down like your favorite options, or if you put down, you know, I think we give you up to 3 of like the classes that you're interested in. And then ultimately you might get accepted to all 3. And then it's really up to you to pick. And so that's the best answer I can give. If there's like something that comes up, just email us. We kind of do that on like more of an individual level, but yeah, that's the best answer. When does the program start? So roadmap actually this year, let me pull up my calendar. Roadmap is, give me 1 second. So you would be moving onto campus on August 15th. And then roadmap is starting on the 15th through the 18th. And so that's really when your experience would start. So you'd move in early, do roadmap, and then you would go through the rest of orientation. So that's your answer of when does the program start. And that was also the answer to the when do Endeavor students move in. So it would be in August. Let's see. So, Meghana, you kind of answered this already a little bit of like, would you say that there's a divide between the students in the Richmond Endeavor program and those who aren't a part of it? Maybe can you tell a little bit about like how you felt about that and if you were able to kind of connect with students who aren't in the program?
Yeah, so um, I definitely don't think that there's any sort of divide between like students who are in Endeavor versus students who aren't in Endeavor, just because with our housing alone, you're not like only living with Endeavor students in that dorm, it's non-Endeavor and Endeavor students. And just like if through nothing else, through your other classes that you're going to be taking, you're going to meet non-Endeavor students. And then also through clubs, organizations, or just like other mutual friends, you'll also meet non-Endeavor students. So there's definitely like no weird like, oh, this person's in Endeavor, this person isn't in Endeavor, they can't like be friends. It's nothing like that.
Mhm. So there's a question that says, are there any other FYS courses / topics offered to Endeavor students? Are those FYS courses set for the upcoming school year, or are they subject to change? So if you're part of whichever the communities here that like have FYS for the first semester, that would be your first year seminar for the semester. But for example, let's say you are in the Leadership Endeavor program, right? There's a whole list of first year seminars. I'm not quite sure when that list will come out or if it already is out. But if you go, if you, it should be on the website of like, and there's a bunch of different topics, like literally a lot of different topics, because first year seminar is really a class that's supposed to help you and helps you kind of figure out like college writing. And so it really helps you understand like how to write a college paper and what professors are generally looking for. So if you happen to be in an Endeavor program that is not a first year seminar, you'll be able to look at a list of all those classes, and they think they do change per semester. So there's different topics that are offered each semester. Let's see. Done with this. Sorry, I'm just making sure that I don't repeat. Oh, can you share the link to the Scholars Program info session, the Bonner Scholars one? Andy, do you have the link for that? I'm not sure if you can share it in the chat maybe.
I can touch on like the difference in atmosphere, I guess, with the general public versus Endeavor students.
Mhm.
I guess an example of this is just with Endeavor students, there's that automatic sense of like a weird sense of camaraderie, I guess, or like a bond you create with your cohort. So, in terms of that, like I had students who were in similar classes as me or the same class. And so I would study for them, like apart from Endeavor, I had students in my chem class or something like that. And we would study together for those tests just because we knew each other from Endeavor and then we knew we were also taking the same class. So, in terms of collaboration, there is that other like built-in kind of area, just because the endeavor you take, especially if you're majoring in that, the other students are probably also going to have that same interest and be taking similar classes outside of Endeavor as well. So that's just a nice way to collaborate with students. But I don't think that takes away from general public. It just might make it a little bit easier to facilitate collaboration.
Mhm. Thank you. There's a question that says, is any other information viewed other than the Endeavor application, such as the college application? So we have access to the college application like through the portal just on our end, but we really only focus on the Endeavor like application. So we really just focus on the questions that we ask for the program specifically. There is a question on what's the walking distance between Endeavor dorm and other first year dorms. Meghana, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, it's like maybe a 7 to 10 minute walk, I guess, depending on what dorm you're going to and then how fast you're walking. It doesn't take long though at all.
And I think there was someone that asked about Bonner Scholars specifically, but the link for that session, which happens at 8, is actually in the chat. And there's also a link to the FYS courses. So for the first year seminar courses, they'll be listed there once they're finalized for the fall semester. Let's see. So there's a question, heard a lot of good things about Richmond. Professors are super, campus is very good. Some of the reviews mention racism. So would you kindly tell a little bit about it? So there was, I'm sure you all might have seen like on the news, there has been a little bit of tension on campus because of the board, between the board of trustees and the rest of the university, just in terms of naming buildings or changing names on buildings and stuff. I think I can speak as a staff member on campus. I think it's been wonderful to see students be like take a more activist role and like being able to speak their truth and speak their voices. I think that it's been interesting to see the responses from the board of trustees, but I feel like it's just it's a situation that kind of exposed a lot of like things that were good about the university, but also things that need to be worked on, right? And so I think that what was good is that as a community, a lot of students, staff, and faculty did come together and were able to share their views and share their voices and have their voices be heard. I think that it was a really stunning display of camaraderie, but I think that as with other any institution in America, I think is grappling in some way, shape, or form with issues with racism. And so I think in that sense, it was a little interesting and, to be honest, a little bit disappointing to see the answer from the board of trustees. But yeah, I guess like from my side, I can say that at least on the day-to-day on the ground, people have been coming together more and people have been talking about these issues more and making their views heard a little bit more. So that's the like, I don't know if that answered your question, but I think that it's just a reality that is unfortunately true on a lot of college campuses and including Richmond, especially given the history of the campus and the history of Richmond in general. So I don't know if that answered your question, but those are my 2 cents about that. Let's see. There was a question, can you explain the class What's Hot in the City? And so that's like a class that is like mainly focused on like environmental, like climate change and things like that. But I would not be doing it justice right now because off the top of my head, I can't remember like specifics. But if you go on our website, it does have a full like course description, and it also has a like explanation of the classes that you would be taking. So Jessica, I don't know if you're still on here, but if you go on our website, there's like a whole like description of that class. But similar to some of the other ones, that class, Geology 250, that would be counting towards like one of the requirements, I believe, for the major. But you can take a look on our website because it has a lot more details on there. Meghana, do you want to answer this question about, do Endeavor students have to take classes other than the ones offered within the program? Is the workload more challenging in Endeavor?
Yeah, so you do have to take like your normal course load of classes, but your Endeavor class itself doesn't require any other classes than the classes that are listed. And you will be automatically enrolled in those. So you don't have to worry about like registering for those, or at least that's how it was for us. I assume that's how it's going to be again. But in terms of if course load is more difficult, I don't think it is, just because the classes can be taken by other students, just not within the Endeavor cohort and not necessarily during the same semester. So the course doesn't change. It's just kind of how close you are with your classmates as well as the professor is what really changes, which honestly, in my opinion, might make the course load a bit easier.
Awesome. Let's see. There was a class, should someone apply, or a question, should someone apply to Roadmap in case you're declined from Endeavor? So you can, the deadline for Roadmap is actually in July. And so you would know whether or not you're accepted into Endeavor in June. And so then you can make the decision of whether or not you want to like submit, or whether or not you want to register for Roadmap. It is like a registration. So if you register for Roadmap, you'll be a part of Roadmap kind of thing. And it's just the classes will be different. And so we have the listing, if you go on roadmap.richmond.edu, which I'll put in the chat in a second, but the list of like the classes that we're offering through Roadmap are already up. And so you would be choosing from those short course classes. And there's also more information about Roadmap on our website, which I just put in the chat. Let's see, how lengthy should the About Us section in the application be? As much as you think it needs to be, like, it's whatever you think is enough for the faculty member to kind of get a sense of who you are. You can focus on everything on one part of your experience. You can focus on kind of like a general overview, but really there's no real like length requirement. I would suggest that you do a little bit more than maybe one sentence, but we just want to get to know who you are and you know what you're about. So there's 2 questions left. If you don't get into any of your top 3, would you be able to take a spot in another option if you, yeah. So Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but we typically, after we kind of like see how the classes kind of panned out, like if there are openings like in classes and you maybe necessarily didn't put it on your top or in your what am I trying to say, in your preferences, we might reach out to you and let you know like, hey, I know you didn't express interest in this class, but there is like room. So yeah,
That's correct. Yes.
So if you, yeah, so that's like the answer to that. And then the last question is, why not do Endeavor? I don't know, why would you not want to do this program? I feel like, I mean, I'm biased. We are all biased here, but I think that, you know, really, if you don't want to find a community of people who have a similar interest, if you're not really about the like intense, like, and I say intense of like, you know, closeness of having people in a class with you and doing things together, like if that's not really your jam, then maybe Endeavor isn't for you. But like I said, I'm biased. I feel like it's a great program that really helps you acclimate to the university. So I think that's it. So we do have to wrap up because this webinar ends at 7:45. And if you are interested again in the Bonner Scholars session that's right after this, it starts at 8 and the link to that is in the chat. This is my email. And so feel free to kind of like take that down. And if you have any other questions that come up that you want to kind of reach out to me directly, please feel free to do so. Or any of the people in the Office of Living and Learning. Our contact information is all on our website. But other than that, thank you for coming and thank you for hearing us talk. Bye.